Welcome. Welcome once more to a presentation here at Instant HPI. We're going to help you transform your practice for the best. And here we go. Let's start. So today we're going to explain to you the basics of automation. What are the different methods that we can automate, and how does that reflect into going from saving seconds to saving minutes? But then again, highly repetitive tasks like things, let's say the average physician sees 20 patients a day, let's say that. So 20 times you have to at least sign a note. You have to at least sign a prescription. You may do a referral. You may do any form of paperwork, a prescription for tests, a prescription for vaccination, an X-ray requisition, a document or a prescription that needs to be refilled. In a day for 20 patients, this creates a significant amount of time where you're basically writing down. So we're going to try to find with AI how we can solve these 150 something things you need to do on a repetitive basis. You multiply that now times 20 because you may work 20 times a month for full time. Full-time physicians are working 155 hours a month. So you just do the math yourself. A significant amount of your time is actually not being used in a very useful way. It's not very useful for patients, but it's a necessity. There's no one else to do it besides. Let's see here. So the tiers, not all are all or nothing approach. Each tier builds up on previous gains and start where you are, progress at your pace. Okay, so let's explain this a little bit further. I explained earlier that and I will give you my historical experience, so my cheminement, like we use in French. The idea here is that for you to get to fully automated, so the goal of automation is to do 99% of your work, not to replace you. That is the desire of people that want to have money. It is ultimately to destroy the profession. We're trying to get it to 99% of the work is done. It's like the pyramid. You don't want to cap the pyramid. So we don't want to remove the need for physicians, because if there is a lack of need for physicians, one day we will become slaves of artificial intelligence or technology. Basically, we will have nothing. So that being said, the earlier models in my medical practice, in my story as a doctor, were when I was working in an urgent care center. So when I trained in the States from 2012 to 2015 in Ohio, Youngstown, we used to have Epic, which at the time was a fantastic electronic medical system. It was perfect. It had already built in lots of automations. But when I came to Quebec, I couldn't bring in Epic with me. They didn't have the system here. They weren't even selling it in the entire country of Canada. So now we're 10 years into my medical practice here, to be accurate, 8 years. And it's been already used for at least 1 to 2 years. It's been in use in Ontario, but it's not in Quebec as of yet. So when I entered the work here, and I went to a lot of places that were still using paper notes, where physicians were writing down their notes. I'm talking about 40 plus physician clinics where the urgent care centers are actually using hand. So as a physician, I was confronted with the paradox that I was trained with a lot of technology, but when it came down to actual work, I felt I was slowed down by the things that I had. I had to do very repetitive things, which I didn't find pertinent. So the simple thing that I did mention was the use of this. So the Trodat, so you guys can see it here in the without the filter. The Trodat is a recording system, right? This is a self-inking Trodat. You've seen that probably in videos or images or whatnot. You stamp it. It's self-inking. It will put your name, your code, your license number, the date of today, and it will also add my signature. So I had to look for a specific one like that. But since I was working in the emergency department, already as an emergency department physician, you're going to see a lot of naproxen use, a lot of people with inflammatory conditions, pharyngitis, sinusitis, arthritis. So I had a stamp for naproxen, and it said naproxen 500 milligrams, oral BID as needed, prescribed 60, renew, and then I just left it blank. I would write a number if I needed to. But this became something that I would stamp on the paper scripts if I was going to use that. If I was going to use Ventolin, I had one for Ventolin as well. I had a person with bronchitis, a refill of their asthma medication. I had one for Z-Pak, for azithromycin. So basically tried to automate those things, which I found to be because also you want to see more patients, you want to work, and you don't want to be running between patients. So the way you go about that is you have to calibrate and basically start building from scratch. So that's one of the first things that I came up with. So these are what. So first, before that, what I was just talking about is actually tier one. First, in my steps in automation, but what I was talking before that was about tier zero. I arrived at a clinic, everything is now relying on me, everything has to be written down. You go to the hospitals in Quebec right now, you have to write down your notes. The hospitalization notes, the admission notes are all handwritten documents from the physicians. It's incredibly poorly mismanaged, and this also has repercussions on how their own capacity to provide healthcare to the population. It truly, truly, truly is deficient in many ways, with people here having 16 to 18 hours of wait time, and it's been so for 20 plus years. So this is so you can understand where I'm coming from, what the solutions are also for our society here in Quebec. It's not a simple solution. It's an automation solution, and it's relying on higher technology to provide good care and consistent care for people and between physicians, more efficient communication. So tier zero is what we have in the simplest of clinics all over the world. So tier one is that example that I gave you with the stamp. It's something very simple. Another thing that I began using, and I'll show you guys. So now you guys can see this other stamp that I have here. I'm going to take out the filters from the videos because the backgrounds are, all right, so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So you see this here. This is a self-inking stamp. So then I brought my game to the next level. So one of the ways that I decided to work that would be more efficient is just to take a certain type of patients. For example, in here, I have, I was doing workers' comp. So workers' comp in Quebec is something that not a lot of doctors like to do. I thought it was nice, it was easy, pays well. I liked it. And during a time that I was in private practice, these were the patients that basically saved me from closing the clinic, because it's like you had to survive doing what nobody wants type of situation. So I became fond of these clients, and ultimately I decided to see. So a lot of physicians were sending me patients. I had like 20 consultations in the first week. It became very, very, very busy very quickly. And so how do you do documentation? So they would basically give me a form that was titled, to the name of the clinic. But like I said, it's an in-person clinic. So I went online and I bought this, and I paid like $200 for this. Let me show you what it is. It's a self-inking template. I wrote this template. What you see there is written by me. So I hope you guys can all see it. And then I would do this before I would see the patient. I would stamp, and then I had technically a lot of the information already provided, wherein I would just ask the patient, for example, have you tried a physiotherapist as of yet since your injury? They would say no. Then I would circle here, the circle regarding physiotherapy. I would ask him, what's your pain level today? Oh, it feels about a 6 out of 10. I would write 6. And the last time you came here, I was at about a 10. Did you try massage therapy? No. Occupational therapy? Yeah, I did that. And then I did it twice a week. So this is how you begin to automate, even within very simple, low-cost solutions. So I even had the full paragraph that you see here is basically a full examination of musculoskeletal mostly. And at the bottom, I had plan. You can see that here, where I just had to circle. It says NSAIDs. You see the R2 RT0, which means return R2 RTO, return to office in 2 weeks. So I would circle 2 weeks. So this is how I went by. So this is a method that you can use to accelerate depending on where you are. Let's say you move to a country that doesn't have the technology. They're all on paper. There's no computers. It's going to be very hard for you to use even instant HPI. But if this is something that's more compatible to the situation that you're in, then this is how you automate. And this will save a tremendous amount of time. So my job then evolved. I left that medical practice eventually, but I had one for the two things that I decided to work on exclusively, which were mental health and occupational. So mental health and occupational workers' comp, basically, occupational medicine. So these are examples of what I call tier one. So it's a template base, as you saw in this. It's very, very technical, but it's very easy and very nice. And you can do a lot very fast because most of it is already there in front of you. So this was around the year 2019, 2020. So it was right before COVID. And through that, I developed a lot of experience. So these were my early steps in automation. So the difficulty with this is that if you want to get a very precise, it's like instant HPI, by the way, or any type of highly complex workflow. The more you want to make something specific to a job, it's easier for you as far as automation technology exists to have one template for sports medicine rather than one template for all the possible cases in family medicine. It's impossible, right? So you are that template. You are the one that took 10 years to be built, right? You had to go through med school, you had to do training, right? You did maybe a fellowship, maybe not. So you are the template, but relying 100% on yourself is inefficient. So what we want to do is we want to now narrow down what you have decided. You are not just a template, you're the physician. You decide, I want to do this later. I like this medicine more than the other ones. And then you do it for that, so that the form that you give the patient also makes sense. You don't want to give them like something that will take 20 minutes to fill out because they're going to become desperate in the process of you trying to obtain that information. So that is one thing. Now let's moving on to the next, static forms. So this is a template that I will call this is a tier one automation template, right? Because you facilitate the building of that of the note, basically the documentation that you need to use and put in the patient chart, right? So this is good, but it will only do a part of your job. So but now look what you have. You have this, so you're no longer signing documents. You're doing this. So at the end, I had to sign, right? So this is how I would sign the notes that I was doing. I would put in my stamp. So this served as far as me not having to write my full name, my license number, the date of today, that whole thing. So you start generating solutions, but then unfortunately, here's the new problem that you get. Now you need to be carrying a huge thing like this when you go to work, and you need to be carrying something like this also when you go to work. And the more you have of these, eventually I had a freaking fanny pack with little automation tools like this. And it was just, unfortunately, one is for azithromycin, one is for Ventolin. So it's nice, but you can clearly see it's not the perfect solution. So other ways that you can go about for tier one is a lot of systems today, like digital medical records. Like I was still in clinics with digital medical records. They allowed to do things like saving prescriptions. So I started using that. They had also templates where you could save a lab sheet requisition. For example, you want to ask serum iron, TIBC, reticulocytes, occult blood in the stool, right? So in ferritin, and if you're gonna ask for all these and like complete blood count, you would have it already clicked and saved. And so whenever you would open a new patient's chart and you wanted to run, and you would call it like anemia workup, and then you would have and what you would do is you would open, there's another patient, you want to work him up for anemia, you would use that template. So if your medical system allows for this type of automation, it's already most likely built into the electronic medical records that you use. So that is one of the ways that, by the way, I use currently for my STD services, STD checkup services. I have it all already pre-written down. Can you imagine? Urine, throat, and rectal swabs for chlamydia and gonorrhea by TAN or PCR, hepatitis, the core antibody surface antigen, hepatitis C, VDRL, HSV2 antibodies, HIV antibodies. So do you think I'm going to write that by hand and give them like a paper requisition, a little square? No, man. You can only do that so long before, at least at my level, I can't do that. So, and I think this is part of the issue. Like we can become dependent on these technologies that we use. This is why I'm saying, like, if one day in the future AI goes out, it's going to be bad for people if they did not use the AI to train themselves to be free and independent from AI rather than dumping their work on AI. So very important. Also, one of the very interesting things that we can do with AI, particularly with Instant HPI, is we can program CME education, board certification review information for a case that's going to be built so that you can actually go on to read and study as you see patients. You see 20 patients a day, you're going to get 20 board review, like key points about this case. So this is the unprecedented era of medical education. So we should get out of this better physicians, not worse. Okay, so that's one thing. So static forms is not this. Now, what I'm saying about static forms is a pre-made form. So one of the examples where now I was using a template, right, like this for mental health. So the importance about that is that for these patients, when I was going to see them, I needed the nurse to have run already a PHQ-9 and a GAD-7. So these questionnaires are standard questionnaires that allow us to view the severity of depression and anxiety symptoms in patients. They can even help in creating or confirming diagnoses. So they can be used as screening tools as well. So I had the nurse prepare that for me. So this is what we're talking about, a static form. The nurse would print the form and then would give it to the patient prior to me getting into the room. And then when I would see them, I already had the results that could lead me into facilitating the diagnoses without necessarily being a perfect tool. It's not a perfect tool, but it served and it was very useful. So static forms, that's what it's implied. Now, I already told you PHQ-9, GAD-7. There are different forms that you can use online that are validated tools for erectile dysfunction, for urinary incontinence, for female sexual dysfunction. You have a lot of tools in medicine that are online forms of some sort. Now, the problem for the future gears of technology is that they're not necessarily compatible with each other. So you may use some forms online, some validated static forms. How do you do the exporting from that into like AI? That's a little bit more difficult. So this is where I would suggest to use something that worked out for me rather than trying to reinvent the wheel and use FormSite. FormSite will cost you $20 or so a month. You will have your entire career built, or how may I say that? You can create multiple forms and you can make it not only very secure, but you can customize the forms to obtain a fully de-identified and anonymous note for the patient. So you get a safe place online, and then it has a lot of integrations to different things. So that being said, now going into logic-based templates. So a tier 2 product as well, I would say, is AI. AI stands alone. So static forms and AI, it's not written here in the AI, but take that into consideration too. So AI would be, for example, I give it the information. Let's say I get the result of the form site results of the patient when they submitted the form. I get that in PDF format sent to me by email by form site. I copy paste all the information and I give it to an AI to work on it. And you do that. Now, the other static form is the program within the AI. For example, I would suggest in this case using ChatGPT for two important reasons. The best AI right now, I would say, is Cloud, but Cloud has multiple limitations. Or Anthropic Opus 4 has the limitations that you can't actually communicate. You're not able to continue a conversation indefinitely. They have capped. Even if you pay the max $200 a month, their conversations are capped and you're forced to open a new conversation over and over and over again. I did not see this in ChatGPT. So that is one limitation. The other one is that ChatGPT has a tool called MyGPTs. You can create your version of a GPT and you can put code into that GPT for it to process something. So MyGPT basically has codes very similar to Instant HPI. For example, since I work in telemedicine, one of the things that I want is that HPI confirmation summary. To me, that is the most important part of every Instant HPI note. The Instant HPI will create first a paragraph called the HPI confirmation summary. So you take all the variables and it's going to transform it into a natural language model that I then will read it. I can read it to the patient if he's in front of me, or I can send it to them via text message if we're using a secure messaging application for medical clinics like Spruce Health, which I've already made some videos on. I hope you guys watch them so you can see what you can do for yourself there. It's going to be a life changer and a very positive gain for you as a physician. And a tremendous game for your patients because it is very intermingled with how we live our lives today, how we spend a lot of time on social media. So you'll be in your patient's cell phone as a clinic. You'll have a clinic on a cell phone type of relationship with your patients. So like you see the photo here with the physician holding on the tablet, the idea behind is that you have already collected the information. Now you have to manually do this. This is why it's not a tier 3 level of automation. You have automation on one information collection step, but now you have to process that into something that's already usable to you. So you can do it with things like ChatGPT, MyGPT. You give it a code configuration, but then every time you have to be going back and forth, finding the note, copy pasting, and then waiting for the output to come from ChatGPT. So this may also require you to pay for ChatGPT Plus, or I don't know what it is, maybe $20 a month or something like that. But it's absolutely worth it from my viewpoint. So that is something. Okay. So we have, I mentioned, two tier 2 automation systems. So a higher complexity of automation. We talked about the forms online where you can summarize all the history of patient illness processing part and then turning into T3. So tier 3, this is basically what we sell. When people, they ask, well, what is the service of Instant HPI? It's an automation service, but it involves all the steps that we spoke up until now. And the automation is geared towards automating what the physician does on a frequent basis and what they need. So this is the pertinence of automation. Is not what the programmer knows about medicine, it's what you use as a physician. So they will never create an AI that will do what everybody does and it's going to be perfect. What we want to do is an AI that does what you do in your medical practice, and that's what's going to make it perfect. So relative to that, tier 3 automation systems, I explained it already. So now listen to the difference. Now the physician is not involved. The collection of the information is done, usually prepared by your secretary or an automation system. I'll explain that later. Your secretary, my patient comes here. My secretary tells them, please fill out this form. So they fill out the form, they press submit. The form goes to an automation computing system, which could be code that you run through Google Apps Script, or it could be just a code that you have, for example, running through Make so this is more complex. So there are automation technologies that we can use to automate the processing of the information, and then we have to use a language model. So now we're talking about cloud-based AI systems. Let me give you another example of tier 3. So tier 3 exists in two ways. We can have cloud-based, so it's not cloud means it's not physically present in your clinic, right? If you're working telemedicine, it's not where you are. The AI is being hosted on a server, on a private server, installed on a server somewhere in the world. The form is being filled by your patient at his house or from his cell phone, whatever he is. The information is sent over to that server. The AI will create an output and it will send it to you by email. So this is the degree of automation. So you no longer have to be copy pasting and putting it into MyGPT, for example. So now you have a more complex build, and this will save you, it says here more than 50%. To be honest, it's way more than that. We don't know how much it saves you because nobody except myself is using it consistently to see other patients. But when I tell people, in all honesty, I tell people sometimes 90+% of my work is done for me. It's impossible to explain to patients and physicians when they come out of, because you've been now hearing me talk for about 20+ minutes or so, the physicians, when they hear this, they have no idea what the hell we're talking about. A lot of doctors don't even know what ChatGPT is. So this is a hyper complex situation. But I'm talking about 90+% of my process automated. And I told this example to a family member just recently. Actually, it was to my uncle, and it was yesterday. And this is what I told him. I said, hey, listen, man, I had a patient that came in so he was lifting something. He wasn't at work. He was lifting something, and he felt a pop right here, and suddenly he became weak. It became swollen. He had a bruise and everything. And so, so he fills in the form. The form goes to the AI. The AI sends me back the processed information. The AI says, principal diagnoses, tendon rupture. By distal tendon, the biceps, c'est déchirure de la portion distale du tendon du biceps. So distal biceps tendon rupture is and it gave me something like 65% probability that this is the primary diagnosis. And it kind of fits, right? So I was examining this patient over video conference after, and I couldn't even palpate the guy's arm, right? So, but I was seeing it, he was having noticeable weakness for that. So I told the guy, well, listen, I'm going to prepare a few things for you, but I think you need to be seen rather quickly. So the ultrasound, so I prepared a requisition for the ultrasound, but guess what? The AI had already done that. The patient was right-handed. This happened on his right side. He has a manual job, so he needed some work-related recommendations. The AI also prepared that to a very good degree. So the note for that patient had to create a note for him. The AI had already prepared the note as well. So I sent him his documents. He then went to do the test. The following day, he did the test. I don't know how, but he got it done quick. We got it. It was a confirmed distal portion of the biceps tendon that was completely ruptured. So within a day, we had the results. I had already sent it back to him as we had received it by fax, and I had already consulted the orthopedic surgeon. So Initially, he tried to work. I didn't give him a work leave, but then he told me, hey, doc, I actually tried to work today. I was not able to have 12-hour shifts, and I'm not able to work like this. And so I said, okay, I'll write you a work leave just until you see the orthopedic surgeon and see what they recommend. He actually had a 4 centimeter retraction of the tendon. So it's like he had a pretty big injury there. So I give him his work leave, and I didn't do the work leave either. It was already prepared by the AI from the get-go. So this is what I mean. The idea here is that the time saving comes from all this being prepared ahead of time by the AI. The AI goes like, and if you let the AI prepare what it wants, you will never have, you will have very good automation, but you want to tell the AI, prepare absolutely everything for me. So another thing the AI prepared was the physiotherapy referral. So there was a physiotherapy referral. I said, well, in case that you don't have a rupture and it's just a partial tear, which is also possible, you will need to start doing physiotherapy, and you may need as well to see an orthopedic surgeon, regardless, depending on how it happens for you. So also that was prepared. The AI is explained in the code. You need to prepare everything possible for this particular patient. If it's a case that could potentially benefit from acupuncture, prepare an acupuncture referral. And then so the physician gets sometimes 6-7 referrals prepared for him. And then with your discussion, after your discussion with the patient, you more or less know, well, I think this is what we're going to try. Also related to patient preference. What does this patient prefer? So whatever you choose to go into, and then I had to adapt the note because I didn't do exactly what the AI said. So I changed it a little bit, and now the patient's going to be seen by an orthopedic surgeon. And so it's very simple when you have everything built for you beforehand to actually then just do what is right. It's a lot easier than having to build it little by little. The documentation is pristine. The referral for the X-ray, the information is clearly put. All the elements of the subjective are found in the referral to physiotherapy with precise identification of what we're looking for and what is the diagnosis that we're suspecting. All this is on purpose built into the AI. So the other thing is what you want is consistency. If you give the AI 10 different AIs, make me a soap note or process this information for this patient, you're going to get 10 different outputs. With Instant HPI, we put it in a code and we ask the AI to give us an output respecting a form template that we provide for it. That's why from a patient to patient, regardless of the information, regardless of the AIs that you use can use DeepSeek, you can use ChatGPT, you can use Anthropic, you can use Llama, you can use whatever you want to use, right? And it will give you a consistent output that looks regardless of the AI models, it looks the same because we have built structure into the code that we are sending to the AI. So the AI is not just processing the medical stuff, it's actually building an HTML code for an output. So whatever you think is being presented to you actually has a coding HTML structure like a website. So the AI is working to do that for us. So editable logic 3.5. Okay. So what is tier 3.5? So we sell all the automation that you heard in this. We sell this as a subscription. We charge $300 US per month to physicians, up to $599. Not for physicians, but rather for it's when you want to use more specialized notes. You want to use 5 different templates because you work at 5 different places. Then we will charge you $399, $599 for up to 5 different templates with 5 different forms templates with 5 different outputs. So you can do that as well as like 25 combinations of these two. So this is tier 3. Now tier 3.5 is actually our association. The association is Instant HPI. It's called the association, or it's a guild for us, and it's a guild for consultants to automate. So it's a step. It's like how do you call these things? You go to the airport, you stand on, and they just bring you forward. So it's one of those things that will help you. So let me explain. When it comes to paying programmers to build stuff, it's going to be very expensive. Particularly in eye automation, we're talking multiple thousands of dollars per build. Easy, very easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an association where we're going to share the templates for the code so that if a doctor pays $5,000 to build the code for him, all the other doctors will be able to use it. So that way the other doctors don't get to reinvent the wheel. So if you enter, and Instant HPI has been working for 3 years, it has 50-something dermatologists and 20 templates, you can look them over and see the outputs of each of them and be like, oh, I want this one. That way it will save you from paying to build one from scratch. But what if you work in such a specialty field of dermatology that you just like, I can't use any of these. These are not the questions. Then you may just pay for it. And if you do, after we'll make it accessible to everybody. So there are monthly fees that we charge, but it's also a community. So people can use this information. And whenever you pay for a form, we'll share it with everybody else. So you're invited to use what other people have paid thousands of dollars. We put it in there so that you can just pay your $60 and use it. And the same goes for them. They want to use, maybe they move to another clinic, another type of medicine. They may pay their $60 USD a month fee, and then they can get whatever template they want to use, okay? So that is how we actually share the information with physicians. And ultimately, tier 4. Tier 4 is what we don't have right now. We're working on it. And tier 4 is 99% of all things. So this is, first and foremost, you need to understand what I mean, because context means everything. It's going to be a text-based exchange system. It's going to be a platform for telemedicine with secure messages that you go back and forth with people, with your patients. But the AI is going to scan the conversation and it's going to come to you and it's going to tell you, oh, by the way, this patient is also, for example, she's 46. Do you want to propose to her also to do a mammogram, all the screening, all the vaccinations required for that age group? And the AI is going to keep a file up to date of this patient and their needs. And so it's going to be a tool for you to be able to do preventative care medicine, which is the best medicine. It's preventative care, but it's not done too much here, at least in Quebec, because of the difficulty of physicians being overworked. So that being said, that is one aspect of it. The other aspect, it's going to follow up, it's going to be scanning the conversations. And so the conversations will then provide information to you. For example, it will make sure it's going to basically just go back to you and propose replies. And then you can tell it, no, I don't want to do this. I want to do it like this. And it's going to prepare a paragraph for you, Spartan tone, 3-4 lines, 5-6 lines, and it's going to send it to the patient. Another way to see this, for example, within T4, as I'm working on it, I've done about 40 or so diagnoses where the physician will be, for example, patient presents with back pain. They fill the form in Instant HPI. And remember, we always build from what we had before. So T4 already includes T3. So the patient says, okay, a new presentation for back pain. They're 54. They filled in the form and you get the HPI confirmation summary. So now you take that paragraph that basically tells the patient, I have to show you guys an example of an HPI confirmation summary so you actually see what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about. Now I got to translate it to English too. All right, so check this. This is the HPI confirmation summary, and this is what it looks like. It says, just to check with you, before we continue, you're a 27-year-old female patient who presents with pain on urination localized in the vaginal urethral region, which began on 6/26. So basically last month. We are now the 4th, so maybe 10 days ago. The symptoms are rated 8 out of 10. The symptoms worsen with urinary retention, improves with hydration. You also mentioned, so this, in this particular case, to me, is actually something that I look down on. There's no polyuria to it. The patient don't know what the hell this means. So when I use this, I actually had to erase it and I had to write it like pain on urination, peeing more frequently, difficulty initiation. So basically the patient sees all this and it's a yes and no question. So that's what the HPI confirmation summary actually is. So going back to our slides now, so that whenever the AI gives us that output, it's going to actually pull it and send it into the conversation to the patient before you even being notified about this. So the patient will say that and say, oh yes, this is definitely my case. And when the patient replies to that, then you are notified. Now, the AI has, to make things relatable, I've created for each scenario like a different type of build. For example, for back pain, X-rays, I told the AI, I want requisition for X-rays, MRIs, physiotherapy, massage therapy, kinesiology. What else? I want naproxen, Flexeril. What else can we use? Tylenol, laser therapy, if I didn't mention it, acupuncture. So I want all of these things to be, a referral to pain. It's called PMR in physical medicine, and physiatry is in French, physiatre. Physical medicine and rehab, orthopedic surgery, sometimes neurology, sometimes neurosurgery needs to be involved. Sometimes a social worker needs to be involved. So a work leave needs to be done, a work-related recommendation needs to be done. All this is going to be it's going to basically be shown to you with check boxes. And then you go like, okay, this guy, yeah, he already saw acupuncturist, whatever, so we're not going to do that. So, but he's never done physiotherapy. Okay, so it will also have like 10 questions that most relatable to the case. And then you just click a box and then AI is going to prepare a message and send it over to the patient. So you, the physician, you're basically going like click, 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 click. This is actually your work now. So to create the note, you just go to the section of the SOAP note, you edit whatever you want, then you press approve. It's going to go to the patient communication as a SOAP note. So one of the great tools in medicine would be to have maximum transparency. It would be good that the patient also has access to that note right away. So that's one of the things. The referrals will all go to the patient. So the prescriptions, then you check the box, the medication, and then you can then fax it. So this is T4. Everything is done for you only through click, 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 click. It's going to basically 99% of your work will be click, 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 click. I want to do this. I want to do this. Approve. I want to do this. Approve. I want to ask this question that's already listed. Approve. Like that. Prepare message for patient, return write to me here in like 3 weeks. Click, click, approve. Message is sent over to the patient. Like that. Patient has a question, the AI reformulates it, shows it to you. This is a reformulation of the patient. Are you approving with this reply? Or what reply do you want to provide? So on, so forth. With the possibility integration, of course, through telemedicine or anything else. So that is T4. That is where so now we're talking about running a full medical practice where literally everything is done by an AI, including lab interpretation, imaging study interpretation. You receive a fax. The AI scans the fax. Okay, this is the problem of this patient. By the way, this technology doesn't exist right now, but it does exist to some degree in some services. But you scan the document, it scans the documents, and then it needs to prepare something. So one of the ways that we could do that is that we need, before the AI runs the interpretation thing, that it needs to be de-identified. And that's what we don't have right now. We need a system to de-identify the AI. But anyways, that's more on technical issue from my end. So like I was saying, so you are then doing, so the AI, but I'm telling you how it's going to be. The AI will scan the document. It will say, for example, mammogram of the breasts are very dense. We also recommend that she gets echo ultrasound of both breasts on a yearly basis, along with a mammogram. So upon that reception, the AI sees that, it understands you need to not communicate this to the patient. So it will prepare a message to let you know, hey, listen, this is the result, and it will show you a screenshot of that particular case, of the results of the mammogram. Do you want me to send a message to the patient saying that maybe today the mammogram was okay, but the radiologist recommended that we do yearly scans, and I'm going to prepare for you a mammogram requisition with an echo to do next year about the same month. And then, do you want me to prepare this for the patient? The physician again goes to approve. The message is sent over to the patient. The PDF is created, is sent over to the patient automatically. Boom, baby, boom. It's paradise on earth for physicians. So we're working on that. And if Instant HPI actually gains some track, then this is where we're going to be investing some of that money to the development of that. So that is the structure of the different tiers of automation. We went from tier 0, which is basically the Stone Age, where at least a lot of physicians are now. And let's be serious. There are some doctors that have been working medicine at a time that there were no such things as all the tools we have today. The medical profession has become extremely complex, going from very simple notes, like one phrase, doing well, to now you need to back yourself with very strong legal documentation and very high degree of complexity for cases. Even the population has changed. So since you live in a new era, you need the tools of the new era, and that's how you survive. So these physicians are going to be phased out. They're about to leave, in Quebec, 53 years of age is the average age of physicians, with over 4,000 doctors. So that's 20% of the physician workforce in Quebec is over the age of 60. So what we're going to see right now with the wait times in the emergency department, they say about 18 hours on average wait time. 18 hours of wait time. We have a deficiency of about 1,000 family physicians. And I just told you that we have 4,000. Let me say that again. We have a deficiency of about 1,000 doctors, and we have 4,000 physicians, 10,000 physicians, above the age of 53, and of those, 4,000 are above the age of 60. So that being said, the next few years in Quebec are going to spell out a complete disaster. And there's only one way to deal with that. We either use the tools that cost for people to get services that help physicians do their job, or we don't. And in the case that we won't, then what you're going to see is physicians slowly burn out faster and faster, and then the complete abandonment of the medical profession, very likely, at which point the profession will simply be taken over by robots. That is the most likely scenario. It's either we embrace technology and we move forward to provide services to people that are meaningful and humane, or we're just not going to be able to compete. You either move ahead with the times. You know, it's like horses were exclusively used before as a means of transportation. Now we have airplanes, boats, motorcycles, bicycles, e-bikes. So the technology is moving ahead. And there's a lot of good things that are, but I think, the younger generation of doctors, they're not seeing like, hey man, I'm going to retire in like 6 months. You think I'm going to start installing instant HPI here? Hell no, I'm out of this place anyways. So I know that's the attitude of a lot of physicians. By the way, doctors, I want to thank you for all the years that you did the medicine while it was the toughest. We have the easiest, and we have it the easiest because you guys worked out so that we could have it, so that you trained us and you gave us very good tools. So I don't want to diminish the tools that you guys have, but I want to offer also these new tools to the new generation of doctors that are going to see that they definitely want to enjoy a lot more of the world. And so it's one of the ways you go about it. You want to enjoy your life. You don't want to necessarily give all of yourself in your medical profession. All right, so that's it for today, guys. I wonder what this does. Let me see what this does. I see. Never used that button before. Spotlight. All right, so that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video about the different tiers of AI automation. So the top tier is tier 4, and it's tier 5 is we don't exist anymore. It's 100% of your job automated. So goodbye. They're not going to be paying you good money anymore at that point in time. So you might as well make the money so that you don't fall to it's like being left behind in that race where everybody's not going on like supersonic vehicles and you're still on a camel there, like in the desert. So that's it.